Welcome back to the Living for His Glory podcast. I know we've been gone a long time, but I am really excited to get back in this one. We have an amazing guest, Emma Almquist. Emma is on my golf team. She's on the girls' golf team, not my golf team necessarily, but we practice together, we work out together as teammates. We're basically one big family. We work really closely together, and it has been awesome getting to know you this year.
Yeah.
I know that you're a transfer. You're a senior transfer.
Senior transfer.
Do you have a different year of eligibility after this, or are you done?
No, done.
Yeah, you're done.
Done.
So just
Yep.
one and done.
Mhm.
One and done at Trevecca.
Yeah.
Interesting. Getting to know you this year has been great. And you're great, and watching you change who we are as a team, especially seeing you change the girls as they are, has honestly been really cool to watch. I know you didn't really see it because you weren't here,
Yeah.
but I was there for 2 years before, and you have really stepped up into a great leadership role that I just didn't expect, and I'm sure many people didn't expect. And I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm really excited for the next however long we spend together doing this. That's going to be a great, great episode. Emma, how are you?
Good. Thanks for the introduction.
Absolutely.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. But just getting to some questions, because you, like I said, you've really stepped up in a leadership role. And I don't necessarily just mean golf, but you have been kicking some tail on the golf course, all right?
Appreciate it.
You haven't had your first tournament yet this season, but the fall went well. I'm excited to see the first scores of this tournament.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be good.
But you have also stepped up in a leadership role spiritually.
Mhm.
And I've been blessed that you included me in on that.
It's been fun.
It has been fun.
Yeah,
It has been fun. I really enjoy sitting in my 8 a.m. class, not paying attention, but reading these layouts that you have. And I know I had to text you about them in a couple minutes because I'm like, well, they're good. They're good.
Yeah, I feel like it's going well.
Yeah,
So.
it is. And so Emma started a Bible study with our women's golf team, and they're going over the book of John for this semester. Now, coincidentally, our church is also going over John, so that helps.
On purpose.
It helps.
It helped
Yeah,
a
it was
little bit.
on
Yeah,
purpose. Okay,
a
so
little
that was purposeful. It helped, get some expertise from the pulpit. I'm sure you might be listening to their podcast to get up on little, certain things that they didn't quite make the sermon. But it has been really, really cool watching you make the layouts, helping you with questions that you may have, but you don't have a lot. You're just smart. And then I really wish I was a fly on the wall during these Bible studies.
They're good. You would enjoy it for sure. No, we've had some really good discussions, very open, honest conversations. So that's always kind of the main goal of a Bible study. And so I feel like, yeah, it's been going really great so far.
Absolutely. So when you were stepping into that leadership role, especially, you've been here, this is your first year here, this is your last year here. And I know you're a senior, but it's really hard to become a leader on your team after just a semester.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about what was it like stepping into that faithful leadership role on the team, on golf course, off golf course, just little nooks and crannies of that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you said, like it's tough. You come into a brand new environment, don't know anyone, you don't have that, haven't built anything up really. And so I think kind of first semester I go to the Athletes in Action weekly Bible studies, and they're super big about like making disciples of Jesus and like having Bible studies for each team. And they kind of like prompted it, but definitely a lot of doubt on my end. I just didn't know people that well, and so I didn't really know where they were at in their faith. And then like you said, like I just had transferred in. And so I think that, so fall I was like, ooh, I don't know. And then I was kind of like, well, it would be too late. But then I feel like over winter break, we had a couple weeks off, prayed about it a little bit, and was kind of like, I don't know. It's like kind of still was like on my mind. And then, we went to like that first meeting of the semester, and I remember you like looking at me and you're like, you need to do it. And I think that was a good little push because I feel like since coming to Trevecca, my faith has grown a lot. And so I feel like I'm definitely much more equipped now. And then I think I just needed a little push, and it's not too late. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, when we were at that Bible study and they were talking about it, I got my juices going, as I do. I just my brain just goes and it doesn't stop and it doesn't want to stop. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, okay, well, Emma's here, right? And I started thinking about it. I'm like, she would actually, like, not just because she's here, but she would actually be really good to lead this if it happened. I didn't know if you'd say yes or not. I had no idea how the Lord was working on your heart there, but I was like, hey, that'd be pretty good. I came up and I was like, we need to get this going. And in my, naivete, I guess, and my excitement is probably a better word for it, I was like, how can I help?
Yeah.
And you were like, by staying away. And I was like, okay, that's probably a good idea. That's probably for the best. But it honestly, like, just hearing feedback from you on occasion, I'll show up the next morning for Thursday morning workouts, be like, hey, how was Bible study? I've got some good feedback. I've never heard somebody say it was bad.
Okay, that's good.
So that is good.
That's the goal.
That is the goal. I'm curious, because something like this changes people. It changes lives. It transforms them. Nazarenes like that word transformation. Formation is another great word that they love to use. And so I'm curious, how have you seen your teammates' lives transformed, changed, formed through this Bible study? I mean, I'm not asking you to be specific.
I know.
No one's dirty laundry, right? But even beyond just your teammates, but you yourself. Is this your first time leading the Bible study?
It is. It's new.
Your first time is interesting. It's nerve-wracking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is for sure.
So not just your teammates, but you yourself.
I will say Ava on our team, who's also a senior, is helping me lead it. She's been super great. And so I think from a leadership standpoint for both of us, we've talked about it a lot, where we both are this is both of our first times doing it. And so it's great that we have each other, and she's just super awesome to bounce ideas off of and help lead it. But I think, individually, it's definitely pushing me. I am just really blown away with how it's been going, and I feel like everyone is excited to go, and like I said, we've had some good conversations. I also think it's been good because it's brought us closer as a team. We've been talking on more vulnerable topics and really trying to open up, which is good because we hang out with each other a lot, but it's much more in a golf or a workout or dinner, and so it's good to have set aside time. We go and we do it in a certain space on campus, our practice facility, which I think is also good that it's separate from if we were to do it in someone's apartment, which is where we normally hang out anyways. So
yeah, absolutely. It kind of creates that hey, when you're in the apartment, it's still personal. It's still it's separating those boundaries, and that is really important. I mean, it's a blessing that we finally got access to that facility, so that you guys could have that space. Because it's already generated as kind of a more work serious space, so it's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe get the girls more encouraged to be in there.
True.
Makes them a little happier to be there. That's good. That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel there's been a lot of growth, and actually there's a couple girls on our team who have never participated in a Bible study before, so that's super exciting because that's a big first step. I remember the first one I went to, I knew a couple people in it, but I didn't know a lot of the other people, and it's hard to be open with people you don't know.
Yes.
And so I think that's such a plus of having it on our team, is that we already know each other pretty well, and so then this is just another kind of layer of deeper understanding of each other. And so that makes me super happy, and like I said, we're just kind of taking it and going through the book of John, which has been, it's such a good book to go through.
It is fantastic.
And so I kind of thought that would be a good one for just kind of going through it, especially if people haven't spent a lot of time in the Bible. And I've really enjoyed it too, because I'm okay, when we're going to cover this stuff, I need to make sure I have a lot of context, know what's going on. And so that's been super great for me, because it really pushes me to go and do a good amount of research ahead of time. And then it also is good. It is really making me think, why did this happen? Why did Jesus say this? And I feel especially when I first went through John, or even previous times or whatever, even reading the Bible, I'll kind of skim over something and not think much of it. But when you really understand the context and the background behind it, you're wow, I'm learning something new every single time, of course.
Oh yeah, that's great. You ask yourself questions, you read something, you're okay, well, why this, why that, why that? And I think Noah mentioned that in his sermon last week, where he he kind of broke it down a little bit how he did it. He read it, and then he asked a bunch of questions about it, and then
exactly.
He did, right?
Yeah,
that's super cool. Just hearing how he puts stuff together. If you really listen to more than just the sermon, he'll give you some really good tips about how to lead stuff like that, how to break it down, how to think about the Bible. And he's good at what he does. Yeah, he's very good at what he does, with preaching, with content, with Bible thinking. Fantastic theologian. So just getting into a more, talk about the Bible study, just getting more into background. You just mentioned context, which is great because context is important. How long have you been a believer?
I have only been a believer for about 4 years, so a little bit, yeah, senior year of high school, I started going to church, and so, yeah, a bit of a, not quick turnaround by any means, like 4 years is a good amount of time,
Oh yeah.
but I was, like, didn't go to Sunday school, so I feel like there's a good amount of context, or sometimes I feel like people will be like, oh yeah, in Sunday school we talked about that, and I'm like, I didn't have that, you know what I'm saying,
No,
so.
I had a friend that invited me to church. That invited me to his church because he has got this friend that he wanted me to meet, and I was like, sorry, I volunteer at my church. I like it, right? I got to get people parked. What would they do? What would they do without me?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Your dance moves were quite funny this morning.
Yeah, well, I like to do that. I was actually talking to a couple of them about a slight detour. So I'm on the parking team at my church. And it was like you get so much freedom on the parking team because imagine if you're like an usher, if you're like if you come up as an usher trying to find you a seat, you're like, hey, that way. You're like, you're a freaking weirdo. But if you're parking people, directing them, getting them out, like you can have a little bit of like they want you to have fun. They don't want you to.
You add some pizzazz to it for sure.
I do, and the guys I do it with do as well.
No, I know.
It's funny. So we'll park people. Service will start. We probably come back to our, I guess, little waiting room, break room, whatever, 10, 15 minutes after service starts. And we'll like at first talk about we'll break down like all of our moves. Like they'll be like, yeah, we were like vibing. I'm like, so we're all like a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah.
But yeah, 4 years. Okay, I mean that's a full degree. That's an undergrad degree right there. You have an underground degree in Christianity.
Pretty much.
You don't find a lot of people coming to church, becoming a Christian for the first time, senior year of high school, 18 years old. Most of the time, so my story is I grew up in a Christian household, right? Like, not necessarily a church-going household, but a Christian one. Those values were applied. I went to a private Christian school in high school from first grade to graduation. I'm at a private Christian school now.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's been my thing. I love Jesus. I love learning about him. I love learning about the Bible. It's just what I do. Other people, they'll find Jesus later, maybe in adulthood, maybe in college, which is funny. A lot of people that had my background, they leave the faith in college. Yeah. Maybe in college, maybe a little bit after. But it's interesting, senior year, that doesn't happen very much.
Yeah, I feel like it was a bit like that's a big transition year,
It is. It's the transition year.
Yeah, started going to church like late spring of my senior year.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, didn't grow up like going to church all. We went a couple times growing up. I think in middle school I went a couple times. Or no, elementary school, and I like hated it.
Yeah.
Because it was like it was very new. Like I hadn't ever done it before. I'm like I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
I was pretty shy as a kid, and so I didn't go into like the kids' room.
Yeah.
And so like I had no idea what they were saying. Imagine like someone who's 9 sitting. It's just not. Anyways. So I kind of had honestly a pretty negative view on like church and like religion just because I had no background. Probably, we just didn't really talk about it much. And so not that we didn't believe by any means, but it just wasn't ever talked about. I knew Christmas was, about Jesus, but I didn't fully know. I probably didn't know what the significance with Easter was until like middle school. Like I literally had no idea. And so, but yeah. So a little bit later, started reading my Bible, I would say more like summertime, like about to go to college, and then got into it where I was doing it more consistently, like my freshman year of college. But I feel like it was a big change where definitely had a lot of so I'm from Washington State. My previous school was in Minnesota. Didn't know anyone. I didn't have family in Minnesota, so that's a big change to go to the other side of the country a little bit. And so I think there was a lot of nervousness with that, and so I think that's kind of how it, I don't know, stuck a little bit, where I was like, okay, this is kind of why.
You needed something to cling to, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and you had just found this faith. I'm curious about how, did a friend invite you?
So this is funny. This is God's working in ways. I
Oh, I
started
can't wait.
dating this guy in spring of my senior year.
Something about a guy. Always something about a guy, right?
Yeah, and so we're not dating anymore. We didn't date that long or anything, but him and his family were Christians, and so they invited me. And yeah, like I said, like the first few times they invited me, I was like, I was like, oh, I don't know. But yeah, so I'm super grateful for that, and it's funny to see how God uses people.
That is funny. There's always something with relationships.
Always,
right?
yeah, it's always a guy, right?
It's always about a guy. I didn't have, somebody that necessarily introduced me, but I definitely had something about a girl that made my faith heavier, which is funny because I've always been the spiritual leader of my relationships. The girls I've dated just for a wide part have not been equally yoked. Like I've known more, believed more, had more faith, but just certain experiences with those made me deepen my faith.
Exactly.
Like when you moved from Washington to Minnesota, you needed something to cling to, right?
Yeah.
You're several hundred miles away from home.
Yeah.
Like I can go basically any weekend I want to, drive 3.5 hours at home. You don't have that option.
Nope.
It's just not a reality for you.
No. Yeah, so I feel like, and then once I did get to college, I was super blessed in that, like, a couple of my best friends that I met that were on the golf team were also Christians.
Yeah.
And so one of them specifically, like, has a very strong foundation in her faith. Like, her and her family have been, like, super big with me, and so they've been super influential. And so, yeah, I feel like having her, like, she grew up in a Christian household, and so definitely kind of like learning from her, like she's a role model for sure, and then got close with her family, and they're like, yeah, they're huge in my life. They're like who I look up to for sure, and so they're like my spiritual mentors.
Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's like you're still in touch today.
Yeah, actually, I called my friend's mom like last week. We talk probably a few times a month and text and stuff, which is great. And so I told her about this, and so I'm gonna send it over to her. So
That's good. Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. That's really good. Mentors are important. And I've talked about mentors on here a lot. One thing that the Nazarene denomination is just excel at is fellowship. And when God wants you, like when God wants your heart, he's going to put people in your life to help with that.
Yeah, I can 100% see that looking back.
Yes. And like I see it too. And it was weird because me and you have two very different reverse stories in regards to that. Because where you didn't grow up going to church, you didn't grow up in the faith, and then God put faithful people in your life that introduced you to that. I was already introduced to that. And then God, and when I was in high school, put me in contact with some people that were just not strong. And when those inevitably just went wrong and my life was in shambles, that's where he got me.
Yeah.
And that's where he really didn't introduce himself to me, but really deepened that relationship and made the vocational journey, it's more personal for me. It's a lot more personal for me. The first ever episode of this podcast released a little over 3 years ago, and it was like a month after I had this really, really bad situation. And like the way that God moved in that, especially over this last few years, like it's been really, really cool. The deepening and just the amount of stories being built, the amount of formation. And so it's really cool seeing, you who's almost like my mirror of like, I can't imagine what it would be like to not grow up going to church or believing or talking about God. I've got no idea.
Yeah.
We had a Bible, literally from 1st grade to 12th grade, we had a Bible class every day in school.
Wow.
Like I can't imagine like the public school system.
Yeah.
I'm spoiled. That makes me sound like a brat, but
I think it's good though because it really makes me appreciate it.
yeah.
And like I really want to understand now, and so I feel like makes it not, I don't know, I think each is good, but like for me like it feels like very special because it's not something that I've always had per se. And I think it's been a bit of a more individual journey compared to like, okay, my parents are not forcing me, but like it's expected I go to church with them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's definitely a bit more individualized.
Much more your choice.
Yeah. Yes.
Which
yes.
is instrumental for your faith. So like think about it like it's sports. Like so a lot of burnout happens with kids just because their parents are like, you're going to do that. Like you're going to go practice golf. We're going to the batting cages today. Like if you're not waking up at 5 a.m. and going to go shoot some hoops, you're not doing enough. And at least from my side, like my dad introduced me to golf, and he was like that a little bit when I was young. But I remember somewhere in that like 12-year-old range, 13-year-old range, he was like, you know what? If he doesn't want to be good at this, he ain't gotta be. And which is funny because that's actually when I started practicing a lot
Yeah.
more, playing a lot more, falling in deeper love with the game. It's because I chose. Like, it's amazing the power of choice, what that does, and how much you love something, and how
Yeah.
much you go after something. And so, you who chose, you who had the, you knew what life, you know what life is outside the faith.
Yeah.
You know what it's like to live in those ways, to be wrapped up in those behaviors and those people. Like, you know what that's like, and you still chose the faith because you're like, it's just way better on the
Yeah,
other side.
it's
just
much better.
it's way better on
Yeah.
the other side. And so I'm curious, and you can go as deep or as shallow as you want with this. I'm just, how did God personally change your life? Get in, like, I was learning this class my freshman year, like, there's deconstruction and there's reconstruction. You don't just build around the prop. Like, if your foundation is not solid, you're not going to like kind of build around, try to boost it as best you can. No, you're going to demolish it, and then you're going to rebuild it a little bit better. And so I'm curious if that was your experience, if it was, how that looked like for you. Like, how did God really change and transform you on a really deep level to where now 4 years later you're Bible noob, like I don't know, like Bible study, I'm like I don't even know what that is, to now you're leading one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like, I mean, obviously God has changed like every aspect of my life.
Oh yeah.
And so, I mean, on a more shallow level, I'll go deeper too, but like, I mean, obviously golf wise, like golf used to be center of my life for sure. And so, and golf's tough because it's literally a score.
Yeah.
So if you have a bad round, like if you have a bad game, but like your team still wins in like soccer, football, it's like whatever. But with golf, if you have a bad round, you have a bad round. And so I think it's made golf more enjoyable for sure because at the end of the day, it's just golf. It literally doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been great. Even like now, we go and we play qualifying or whatever tournament, and it's like at the end of the day, God does not care about your golf score.
No, he
which
doesn't.
is very comforting. And I think that has led me to have better results as well. I mean, there's no pressure to it.
No.
And then, yeah, like on a deeper level, like relationship-wise, I mean, I think it is interesting. You drop some people in your life that, shouldn't be there or maybe don't help add to your faith or, you know what I'm saying? And then other people have joined my life that I feel like wouldn't have, which has been awesome. Even if I were to look at it from like the transferring process, I wouldn't have transferred schools. Like that was one of the main reasons why I did transfer, was because I wanted to deepen my faith. And Trevecca's been just super great about that. And so I wouldn't have came here, I wouldn't have met all of my teammates, you of course, so.
I do what I do what I can. You're welcome.
But yeah, no, I think, yeah, it's been, I don't know, it's night and day, of course. And I think that's, like we had just talked about, that's the beauty of really not having a relationship with God until I was like 17, is that I know what it was like before. And I was like old enough, so.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about the removing, and it's always the most difficult thing to talk about. It's hard for people to leave. Like, I'm sure, like, it's not just like, there are a lot of people we went to high school with, and, now they're out of our lives. You're like, yeah, whatever, right? Like, we talked, we're friends or whatever in class, but there is going to be people that you lose. You're like, I just didn't know if I thought there's a time I thought I'd never lose this person. Kind of why the break. I lost a couple people I thought I wasn't going to lose. And so I, just did a little rebuilding of my own, a little restructuring of my own. What was it that Noah said the other week? He's like, we want to change. Like, we want to be healed until it means we have to let something go.
Yeah.
We want God to change us until it's time for us to be changed. And when you are changed, it means there are certain things in your life that just doesn't work anymore. Certain friendships that don't work anymore. Certain relationships that don't work anymore. certain places that don't work anymore. I mean, there's something that had to have not been working in Minnesota to make you come here for some reason. I mean, besides the cold weather up there. I mean, it's what, 60s right now. At March 1st, it's 60s, and back up.
It's 70s.
Is it 70s?
It might be 70 today. It's
Might
pretty
be.
nice.
It's a beautiful day. I was so glad. I've been sitting in 30-degree weather parking people for way too long.
Was it super rainy a couple weeks ago?
A couple weeks ago. Oh my gosh, yeah. I was drenched. I can show you a video that I got with my buddy, and this was like not the worst. Like, even if there's a lot of good stuff you had in Minnesota. Like, you had those mentors, those friends that were really, really helpful. But you have, just because you're in a new area doesn't mean that you've let go of them. Like, that still works to a certain level. And now you're in a new thing that works, because now it's to me, from my perspective, you've gone from late senior year getting into it, really being developed in Minnesota, and then now you're down here and you're leading. Like, how amazing is that?
Yeah, it is amazing.
Like, it's 3 different steps, and you're 22 leading. Who knows what you are able to do moving forward in the rest of your life with work, and I don't know if you're staying here. I don't know if you're going back home. I don't know if you can maybe go back to Minnesota, right? Brand new place. Who knows? But one thing I'm confident in is that when you graduate in 2 months.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
Yeah, especially when you say it like that.
Yeah, 2 months. And I'm thinking about it. I graduate in 14 months, and that's already kind of like, whoo, like, yeah. I'm not like, what? I'm not ready for this. You kidding me? I still want to be a kid. But one thing I'm confident in is that when you do move on, you're only going to continue growing and developing and leading. It's going to be in different ways, but it's going to continue happening. It's going to be really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, going back to the Bible study, going back to just take us through, like, because I've looked at the notes, and I looked at this past week, and I'm like, that's 3 pages of notes.
Yeah, that was a lot.
But
there's 2 of us.
There's 2 of us. Okay, yeah.
With me and Ava, so.
And that helps. Like, earlier we were talking about, like, you first, one and done senior, right? Ava has been, like.
Yeah, she's perfect to work with because Ava is the captain, and she's been here for 4 years. And she is just a phenomenal leader. And so.
She's been a captain for 3 years. She was a captain sophomore year.
I didn't even know this.
Like, the only year she's been here, she hasn't been a captain's freshman year.
That's pretty crazy.
So, like, she has been the name. She's the SAC representative too.
Yeah, exactly.
She has been the named leader of the girls golf team, and she just came in and stepped in with you.
Yeah, no, she did I kind of, like, blew it by her a little bit. Or, like, kind of threw it out there, and I was like, hey, like, thinking of doing this, like, what do you think? And she was like, I'd love to help. And I was like, heck yeah, like, let's do it. That's great. So. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first week you sent me this thing, like, that Ava added. And I was like,
whoa! Every single time, like, because we just have, like, a Google Doc we share. And every single time she goes, did you check last week's? They were so good. Every single time I'm like, this is going to be so good. Yeah.
Oh,
she comes up with great questions that I feel like just lead into super deep conversations.
Absolutely. Like that, like, oh my gosh. I remember the first one that you sent it over to me for the week one. I was like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
I did not. And I think I have a lot of hubris as a religion major.
Probably.
Like, I understand that I know that I'm going to just have more in-depth knowledge.
That's what you're studying. That's what your classes are, yeah.
Right, exactly. But it makes me overlook the fact that somebody could have a bar in there. Like, just because, you're not a religion major, you're a business major, or in her case, a nursing major, like, that don't mean that you don't know some stuff. That don't mean that you can't pin some stuff out. And every single time I overlook somebody and they teach me something about the Bible, I'm like, and here's why, like, it's not true hubris, because true hubris would be like, I'd get really hurt about it. I'll see that, and I'm like, let's go. All right. Like, I love it. I just love learning more about it. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's been somebody that just opened their Bible for the first time 2 weeks ago, or if it's one of my professors who have doctorates in this stuff. Like, learning about it, discussing it, it's just something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good thing to be passionate about, I'd say.
100%.
I mean, if you want to be passionate about God, I'd encourage that. It's pretty good. That's awesome that she's been there to lead you. What has been some of your biggest takeaways from the book of John?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Have you guys been, you 6 chapters deep now? 7?
5.
5. Okay.
Because we
only-
just, yeah, 5.
Okay.
So I would say I think it's been really interesting getting to know more about Jesus and his actions and his words and why they are being done, why they are being said.
Mm.
I think that I feel like it's really like made me question in areas where like I'll be in a situation and it's like, what would Jesus do here? Which is like a very common term,
Of course.
but he really, as we see, of course, he's perfect,
Yes.
no
He's that guy.
sin. And
No.
so, but to like see him like stand up for certain things and why he does, I think it's really interesting. Like, for instance, actually, this was like a pattern that we just took away is he went and he talked to the Samaritan woman, but before that, he talked to Nicodemus.
Mhm.
And then before that, I think he healed someone who was,
Was it so before Nicodemus, so Nicodemus was in 3,
who was in 2.
I thought chapter 2 was about the wedding.
Yes. Okay. So you have the wedding, which is people that don't have enough wine, right? So they're kind of low of the low. Then he talks to Nicodemus, who is very powerful, and then he goes to the Samaritan woman, low of the low.
Yeah.
And then in the next chapter, which is what are we in now? 5 or 4, he heals the religious leader's son.
Yeah,
Or
that's right.
right? Is it the religious leader?
The religious leader.
And so I feel like seeing little like patterns like that has been super awesome. Kind of what Ava and I do for prep is we, of course, like, I don't know how I kind of do it, and then how she does is a little bit different. We don't like meet together or anything, which I think is honestly good because we kind of have separate thoughts and then can put it down. But yeah, we just have a shared Google Doc, and so I'll of course like read the chapter beforehand, and then I listen to like it really helps that way our church is going over John, but I also listen to a separate like sermon on John on Spotify, which is good because I feel like I learn a lot about the context where it's like, for instance, I think in chapter 1 or 2 it talks about John the Baptist is like, I'm not even worthy to like tie Jesus' sandals, which you would normally read right over that and not think anything of it, but like I learned context that it's like super hot, like feet are disgusting, you wouldn't even have like your slaves or servants touch your feet, so for him to say that's like a huge deal.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I feel like I try to get a good amount of background context, and then it's also helpful if someone like has a question about it or I just understand it much more, and then I'll use ChatGPT a little bit to help with like the discussion questions and kind of be like, I want a discussion question for this passage, have it give me some options. Sometimes I'll ask you, kind of try to get just try to get the conversation going. But even when we are having the Bible study, I feel like we'll go into little tangents or like sometimes we'll ask a question that like Ava and I prepped and we thought was going to be like a super great question, and then no.
Yeah, nobody
crickets.
wants to.
No one really wants, like it just like doesn't work as well as we think, and so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of how we go through the process. I'll say like, I don't know, I definitely am like pretty methodical, like analytical. So I do like a good, like it does probably like 2 hours of prep for it if I'm going to be honest in a week.
It's good.
Yeah, 1 hour to 2 hours, which is pretty good. But I mean, it's great because I'm literally spending time in the Word and learning more about it. That I wouldn't, the thing is I would not dive this deep if I was just reading it on my own and not,
No, you go deep into it, and now it's more than just about your faith, it's about others, which is the goal. Like, as you're moving in faith is what you really should be doing. I love the way that Kobe Bryant puts it. The great theologian, Kobe Bryant, not basketball player, theologian. Because he defines greatness as the ability to inspire the person next to you. He meant it a little different. But I don't think that disagrees with the teachings of Jesus. The Great Commission at the end of Matthew, go and make disciples of all nations. So the disciples spent about 3 years with Jesus, being shaped by him, being formed by him, really going deep in with Jesus. And then they spent the next however many years of their lives sharing that. And they even shared it and helped, like Jesus gave them authority to cast out demons, right, go and preach, like even before his death and resurrection. But after that, like the apostles defined our church, even today. Like the whole concept of ordination today is just because like, hey, like pass on what you have learned. like what the apostles preached, what the apostles taught, what they said about Jesus. Like they are the closest people to Jesus that we can get. And so it's funny because as Paul is like Paul thinks of himself as kind of an honorary apostle. He's given apostle, but he's the only apostle that didn't meet Jesus himself. He met him on the road to Damascus after the resurrection when he was, formerly killing these Christians, right? But he is the greatest theologian of all time. Most of our theology comes from Paul and his letters. Like it's absolutely fantastic. And then of course the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, the Synoptic Gospels, and then the odd cousin John.
Of course.
But the odd cousin John is the man. Like he's the guy. He's the black sheep of the Gospels, but he carries. Like he didn't carry. That's probably a bad way to describe the. I can't belittle the other three Gospels, but the theology that we learn in John versus the stories in Matthew, Mark, and Luke are terrific illustrations.
Yeah, it's definitely different. When I was kind of even prepping before, like I said, listened to a couple podcasts on like John, and I didn't know this until, I was doing the prepping, but Matthew, Mark, and Luke all like died earlier, but John lived till like a full life, and so it's
one of the few.
So it's more about like him looking back on it versus I feel like Matthew, Mark, and Luke are more.
They lived it.
Where they were just like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And it's much more of a reflection from John, which is what makes it a little more unique.
I think, absolutely. They didn't, Matthew, Mark, and Luke didn't really have the time to reflect.
Yeah.
They were starting it, they were getting it on. Like Jesus was still really fresh in their minds for a while, and then eventually, those Romans, man. Brutal people. The other disciples all died brutally. And I think John was still burned alive and just happened to make it out. So, none of the disciples lived very fun, easy lives. No. But the rest of them, like Peter, was crucified upside down because he refused to be crucified in the same way that Jesus was. He's like, I'm not worthy of that. Earlier you mentioned worthiness because John the Baptist said, I'm not worthy to untie Jesus' sandals. But it's fun because the feet, they were hot, they were right, the slaves wouldn't even. But it's funny because we've moved forward to John 13. I know you're not there yet, but if you move forward to John 13, you see that Jesus washed the disciples' feet. Even a man like John the Baptist was a guy. People thought he was the Messiah for a little bit, until he was like, I am not that guy, all right? And then he pointed to the guy. John the Baptist was the man. And he was like, I'm not worthy to untie Jesus' sandals. But Jesus went and washed his disciples' feet. And it's really, really interesting. The one whose feet were not even worthy to touch came and washed that of his disciples.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I feel like it really shows how much Jesus wants a relationship with us. So you could even think of it in a friendship way, or for your spouse,
Of course.
You're going to do those actions that are not the most fun, but for the person that you love because you love them so much. And so it shows Jesus' love for us. So
Jesus had that love for us. And because Ephesians is one of my favorite books in the Bible. Particularly, I remember as a kid, I loved Ephesians 6, the armor of God, the wartime imagery. I really fell in love with that when I was in middle school.
But then it's very middle school-esque.
It is. Middle school middle school Luke I went by Luke at the time, but he was an interesting character. People I went to school with can testify.
Sure.
I got stories. I got stories. But then as I got older, I started, I fully understood and comprehended Ephesians. Ephesians 5 is a terrific chapter, and it gets hated on a lot because there's verses that are taken out of context. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But the illustration in Ephesians 5 of how a husband loves his wife and how a wife loves her husband, it's amazing. And if you read it for what it is, it really, really is amazing. And it just shows the life that Jesus lived. And because the illustration is Jesus and his church is the illustration of marriage. That's what marriage means. That's what marriage represents. That's what marriage symbolizes. And because of marriage, we understand the deeper mysteries of Jesus' relationship with us as church. And so when I'm looking at like, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Christ died for his church.
Mm-hmm.
Not just died for it, was crucified. The most painful death he could think of, he did it for his church, for his bride.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And like as a man, like it's really been a testament of like, how do I need to show up for my future wife? The problem is I'm an implementer. I learn something, I try to implement it in my life. I'm not married, so I need to not just apply that yet.
Not there yet.
Maybe to certain degrees, not to the degrees that I tempt myself to do it. Lay down your life. And I love the quote, and Skylar Lewis, the founder of Rise Up King, says this a lot. And he didn't make it up, but a lot of people say they would die for their wives, they'd die for their families, but would you live for them? Jesus didn't just die for us. That's the ultimate, like the Easter. You talk about Easter,
Yeah.
You learn about with Easter, like that's Easter. Easter's my favorite holiday. When Maddox learned that our freshman year, he was like, Easter? Why Easter? I'm like, it just means more.
Yeah.
It's like the SEC. It just means more. All right? It just does. But Christ really lived. And he lived in servitude. Everything that Christ did is an example. Everything that Christ did is, in some way, you can even call it a metaphor of like, he did this. How does this apply? Everything that Jesus did and said carries over in our lives. Everything, every single one. So how is it doing that and making sure it's in the correct context? I mean, marriage is just a big one. It's something that we need to talk about with people our age, because there's a lot of things reserved for marriage that people do.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of marriage in our day and age, because it gets easier and easier to do as time goes on. There's quicker methods and ways, and it's madness. And so, not just in the physical that people like to do, but even like I said earlier, like I emotionally get there, I mentally get there. I've tried to do husband-like things, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, and I'm just like, we're not there yet. So when we're thinking about, certain contexts the Bible uses, like that marriage one in Ephesians, like remembering, like, hey, keep that, put that in the pocket for when you get there.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know where I was going with that, but I just found it to be a
good little tangent.
Good little tangent. Ephesians, I love Ephesians, love John, but Ephesians is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a great read if anybody wants to read it. It's only just 6 chapters. Well, Emma, is there anything else you want to cover? Anything that's coming up? Anything anything I didn't ask about that you want to talk about, or anything that's just coming up spirit-led?
I'll close out in saying that if you feel like God is putting something on your heart, such as leading a Bible study, but you don't feel fully confident, I will say, like, he is able to equip you and to provide you with people that are also going to be able to help you. So I would say go for it. And I think the timing is perfect. Like, I don't think it would have worked super well last semester by any means, but I think, the timing is great. And I think it's important that we're doing it, of course. And, hopefully it continues when Ava and I are done. So that's definitely, hopefully it continues on. I have faith. I think it definitely could, which would be awesome. And so, but and if someone is on a sports team, there is no Bible study, I would highly encourage it. I think it's brought our team, much closer, and we'll see when we get to season if it leads to some better results. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, here's praying. It is amazing, like that really can work. Like I remember doing qualifying for our first tournament last semester, and CGF, we have a Christian Golf Fellowship Bible study every Wednesday, and they had it on Tuesday because there was a Corn Ferry event in town, so the Corn Ferry guys came over. It was really cool.
Nice.
I met Neil Shipley.
No way.
Yeah, Neil Shipley, talked to him a little bit, and I remember several of my teammates were like, dude, get him on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, maybe. I obviously didn't. Maybe I should have, but I showed up to qualifying the next day and dropped like 68.
Yeah.
And like I really wish I can get back in that headspace of what we talked about. I don't even remember every detail because back in September, but when you are secure in something that's more than just a score, it changes how you live your life. Like even now, like I'm not playing great golf right now. Like I'm not going to a bunch of tournaments, but when I get back from qualifying or get back from practice, even if it's been a bad day, I'm like, what does it really
doesn't
matter?
Yeah,
Like
it doesn't.
going through the progressions of, it's natural to have a bad day and be upset about it. It's just natural. But going through those emotions, progressing through them and being like, hey, God's got me. At the end of the day, God loves me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's several people out there, and that me and you know, that could take that lesson and really apply that to heart. And you know what? On a certain level, I can too. I'm not perfect.
It's not just golf either.
No.
Yeah, when you asked about like what ways God has changed your life, it's like it's he's touched every part of my life, of course. But even if something happens where I'm kind of a planner, and I think something happens that's not a part of my plan, I used to get very like freaked out about it. Even like the transferring thing. You never go to a school planning to, like
you don't
usually
know.
not a one and done situation, but it has been like a huge blessing and definitely not part of the plan, but it's worked out so well. And when I was going through it, I kept reminding myself, I'm like, it's not the end of the world by any means. Like, this is a small part of your story. Like, God is going to put me in the best place if that is to go somewhere else or stay where I was at.
Yeah.
So.
And God uses your story for his ministry. Like, we had a guy, Coach CJ, come on here in September, and he talked about your mess becomes your ministry. Coach CJ's the man. I love Coach CJ. I mean, it's really, really good how God uses stories. And that's why I like talking about stories on here. Just because, like, stories are how we connect with people. We talk about the Matthew, Mark, Luke, the stories, and then John, the more reflective theology. Still talking about stories, but broke it down a little bit better. Like, I think that is by design, because we have all these stories and all these parables in the synoptics, and then we have the reflection. And it's like, well, there's a lot more stories than there is John. And I think that's a really interesting layout that God just designed.
It's perfect.
Absolutely. So look for stories, look for pieces of your story, look for ways that God is going to use your story to help others. Not, use the illustration of the mat, not holding it up like, hey, look, I've been this, this, and this, look at me, right? But, when it's time to like, hey, like, look, this was me. And then Jesus did this. And Jesus can do this for you too. And using your story, like inspiring the next. So they then inspire next people, right? And then it just keeps going. The Holy Spirit keeps going. The Holy Spirit keeps moving. Keep the Holy Spirit moving. And you mentioned earlier, if somebody wants to start the Bible study, if that's on your heart, I don't think that you could ever be unqualified.
Yeah.
If the Holy Spirit puts that on your heart, I don't think you ever could be unqualified. And thinking that you're not, it's, in the grand scheme of things, it is questioning God, but it's not a bad thing to do. You ask questions, you get deeper, right? But this doubt, like, God puts that on your heart, and then you experience doubt. I think that's natural, but I think if you let doubt be doubt, and you let it infect if you let it stop you, you just let doubt and fear get in the way of God's expansion, of God's mission. And you did not let any doubt or fear get in the way of God's mission on the women's golf team. And that's pretty cool. Yeah. You can say whatever you want. That's pretty freaking cool, all right? It just is, absolutely. Well, I'll stop wasting any more of your time.
No worries. I gotta go prep. I gotta go prep for this week's Bible study.
That's right. You gotta go prep for this week's Bible study. Today's a good day to do it. We're fresh off, Sunday service, fresh off a good podcast recording. And it's going to be awesome. Absolutely. Yeah. So good luck doing that. Thank you so much, Emma, for coming on here.
Thank you for having me. I
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you were somebody. I was like, you know what? Who better, right? Maybe who knows? Maybe I'll call up Ava after this.
Yeah,
get
her
perspective.
Be a good one.
Get her perspective. I'd be interested to see her response. When I asked you, I thought you were going to be like, I figured you'd say yes, but I was also like, I could see why she'd say no.
No, I think this whole year has been a lot of outside of my comfort zone. I probably. I'm not a huge, haven't said I've been on a podcast before, so.
But knock it off the bucket list.
Exactly. So yeah, started Bible study, been on a podcast, busy start to the semester.
2026 is moving for Emma Almquist. You're making leaps and bounds in 2026. The tens of listeners that we have.
Yeah.
My professor made that joke to me last week. He's like, yeah, for the tens of listeners you have on your podcast. I was like, okay, that's me.
He's calling you out.
Yeah, he's calling. Well, that's just Dr.
Maybe this episode will blow up.
Maybe so. It's going out to teammates. Those teammates can send it to other people. Could. It could. It could very well blow up on social media on the clips, right?
True.
Absolutely. Thank you, Emma. Good luck preparing. I look forward to looking through these.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Living for His Glory. I had such an amazing time making it, and I really hope it connected and impacted you on a significant level. I love making and recording episodes like these. I truly believe that they fulfill the Living for His Glory mission, which is to help you break free of your worldly chains and step into the person that God has called you to be. I love you guys. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I hope that it changes something about how you do this week. I hope you have a good day and a good week as we continue to get ready for next week's episode. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you later.